Well everyone, it's time for us to go and take a look at the Google Pixel 7 Pro and see how this particular phone holds up in 2024. Now, I will definitely tell you, when the Pixel 7 Pro first came out, I was a big fan of this particular phone, and honestly, I'm still a fan of this device. I think the only thing that I would say is even somewhat I'm hesitant of recommending this phone to people is because the Pixel 8 Pro brought a much longer support of version of software. So that would be the first thing I would say, that if you have more money, I would recommend just buying the Google Pixel 8 Pro, because that is going to be a significantly better phone probably for some people. But if not, I still think a phone like the Pixel 7 Pro is still very good. And for the time being, for the next several years, you're really not going to feel like you're missing out on that much, in my opinion. So if you want to pick up the Pixel 7 Pro or the 8 Pro or some other phones I'd recommend buying this year, links will be down in the description. You can get that from there, and you can help support the channel at the same time. Now, starting off with the outside of the Google Pixel 7 Pro, on the front of this particular phone, you have a very, very beautiful design, and I think it's just such an amazing, it's a really good looking phone. It's a very big and massive 6.7-inch LTPO AMOLED display, and it's a 120Hz panel, 1440p, and it's a very good panel. It's a whole bunch of display just like every other phone nowadays, and I would say by far, this is a very good looking device. Like, I definitely like these types of devices, and if I'm going to go ahead and pick up some sort of phone, I definitely want it to look something like this, because it is easily just such a beautiful looking phone, and I'm, like I said before, a massive fan of it. It's a curved glass display at that as well, so it does curve on the side, and I think that's another cool thing going on here too, because by having that curved glass and having that type of design, it is actually a very, very good looking phone, and that's something I actually like a lot about these types of devices, because I doubt you want to go and pick up a phone that's already going to feel and look like outdated and all that stuff, and that is not what's going on here. So, in my opinion, without a doubt, very, very good thing going on for this particular phone. Now, on top of that, you are getting a USB Type-C port on the bottom of this phone. No expandable storage or anything like that, but that's kind of expected at this point. On the sides, it is kind of, like I said, a curved glass side, so it's not a flat side, it's curved. But I still think it looks and feels very good. I would definitely say flat sides are more modern feeling, but this is still a very good looking side on this phone as well. So, thumbs up for me without a doubt. On the back side, you are getting this full-on standard glass back. So this glass back is very nice. I love having this type of glass back. It feels very good. You get that triple camera setup at the top as well. On top of that, you are also getting things like, the standard glass that I mentioned, wireless charging. You're getting reverse wireless charging as well. And overall, I will definitely tell you, with this type of device, you are still getting a very premium, very, strong feeling phone. I love these types of devices because they just hold up so well in so many different ways. And I will tell you, from that perspective, this is a very good feeling and very good looking phone. And it gets a thumbs up from me from both of those perspectives. So that alone on the exterior definitely gets a thumbs up for me, and there's not really that much I could look at and kind of complain about here with this particular device. Now, on top of that, with this particular phone, there's a couple other things you probably kind of want to keep your eye out for. So for one, the price tag of this phone has gone down significantly, and that is something that I actually like a lot about this particular device, because this thing doesn't cost as much as it used to cost. You can buy this thing for like around $300 nowadays. Because it is approaching 2 years old, these things are only going to be getting cheaper and cheaper. So that is a really cool thing going on for this particular device as well. So you could always just go through and just pick up this device because it doesn't cost that much money. And that is a very, very nice thing going on for this particular phone too. So that's something I actually like a lot. And I love buying these types of devices that are just significantly cheaper in the used market, because they don't cost as much as they used to. So that right there's a very cool thing going on for this particular phone too. Now, in terms of the camera setup, this is another very interesting thing to keep in mind here as well. So with something like the Google Pixel 7 Pro, this thing, like I said before, has that triple camera setup on the back side, has a single camera setup on the front. Now, the thing with this is that on the back, it is a 50 megapixel wide, 48 megapixel telephoto, and then a 12 megapixel ultra wide camera. And on the front, it's a 10.8 megapixel ultra wide camera. Now, you are getting 4K at 60 on the front and the back of this particular device, which is very cool. I love having that type of capability, and this phone has a really good camera setup on it. And like I said, that's something that's very cool. When you're getting a device like this, you're going to be getting a device that is actually very, very solid from the camera perspective, which I think is a very important thing to keep in mind. But just keep in mind also that in social media applications and in different areas like that, it's probably not going to be like the best performing device of all time. But I do think for the most part, for the average person, you are still going to be getting a very good type of camera. I would say this is a very good camera for a Pixel. It's not the best camera of all time, but if it makes you feel better, the Pixel 8 Pro camera, I think, really isn't even that much different than this one, from everything that I've tested. So I do think for the most part, like if you're going to go ahead and pick up some sort of device, I think the Pixel 7 Pro's camera is still very, very good for the most part. But if you were wanting the best camera of like all of 2022 or all of 2023, you are going to be getting a better camera inside of those other devices. So inside of basically like the Galaxy, S23 or whatever, phone came out in 2022, the S22, you are much better off probably purchasing those particular devices, rather than this one if you are wanting a device that has a better, camera inside of it. But beyond that, I think this is a very, very good device. I like this device a lot. And I do think this is by far a very, very good device when it comes down to it from the camera perspective. This device is also a very good device when it comes down to the performance and camera perspective. This device is also a very good device when it comes down to the whole entire software longevity perspective as well. Pixels last a very long amount of time, and that is by far one of the biggest advantages of buying something like one of those devices, because you're not going to have to spend all of that money on like a phone every single year or every other year. You're going to be able to buy a phone like the Pixel 7 Pro that still has a fairly decent chipset inside, but is also going to be giving you a very good amount of performance out of it with that chipset because of its software. So hopefully that makes some sense to you all. But that's one of my biggest advantages with this type of device, is that it's going to be able to handle essentially a very long period of software and longevity ahead of it. But like I said, if you want the longer lasting one by a long margin, the Pixel 8 and the 8 Pro are probably the better ones. I'd recommend going that, from that particular side. So that kind of covers it up there as well. From the performance side, like I said before, it did have that Google Tensor G2 chipset inside of it with 8 or 12 gigs of RAM inside, depending on the model you buy. The one I did have, I think it had 12 actually inside of it, but even that 8 gig of RAM option was perfectly fine. The thing I will tell you about the performance of this particular phone is that, like I said before, it's a very good performing device for the most part. It's, the only issue I have with the Pixels nowadays is that they are a little bit different than the Snapdragon phones that we have. But even then, like a lot of applications and a lot of emulators that I've been looking at more so are starting to kind of take it up a notch, and they're starting to kind of, take advantage of that chipset. So I think that's totally fine. And I think that in and of itself is kind of a strong suit for the Pixels now. So they are getting a lot better. I will tell you though, I still think that, Pixel 7 Pro is a very good performing phone, all things considered. They had a lot of good stuff going on for this particular device back then and even now. And I still think for the most part, like if I'm going to go ahead and basically just use a particular device, this is a very good phone. And that's something I like a lot about this, particular phone. It's not like perfect or anything, but I do think for the most part, like if I'm going to go ahead and use some sort of device, I think Google did a really good job with this phone. And I do think that in and of itself is a very, very important thing going on here. So to kind of sum up this whole entire video, and to be completely honest with you, I think the Google Pixel 7 Pro is a very good phone. I think it's a really good device when it first came out, and I still think it's completely worth buying as well. It's not a perfect device though, but I do think for the most part, if you're going to go ahead and buy some sort of device, I think Google did a really good job with this one, and I still think it's completely worth buying for sure. Again, not perfect, but I do think it's a very, very good phone, and I'd recommend probably the average person to go ahead and pick up this device when it comes down to it. It's a really, really good price phone when all things considered. That makes sense. So that kind of covers it up there. If you have any other thoughts or questions though, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.